Oh, God, yeah. We've got some.
Yeah, that's all that pressure reduced it.
Yes, there is.
A lot of pet trucks on one
Here's this
train.
one.
Step back here. Hi, Ray.
Hi, how you doing?
We got the family coming through.
You guys, any questions?
This is a place, kids. Well, I'll give them a chance to ask you some questions here. I just wanted to tell them my experience for a second. I got put on mess cooking for 3 months, and I worked in here. I spent a lot of time down in there. That is the refrigerator where we stored most of our, well, all our perishables and a lot of our food. And I'd be going up and down. The cooks would tell me what the menu was going to be for the next meal, and I'd have to go down there and get what they needed and give it to them. If you looked in there, that little bitty kitchen was what the cooks used to feed the entire crew of 70 men. 3 big meals a day, and then we had, in between those, we had what we call soup downs, where like late at night before you went on watch, you could get a bowl of soup and make a sandwich. But we had breakfast, lunch, and dinner were the main meals, but we had 3 soup downs, so there was like 6 meals a day. So you were always making a meal or cleaning up after it as a mess cook. This is Chief Ray Lambert. He's been, how many years do you have in, Chief? Total.
19 years, 11 months.
20-year man. Oh, there's Betty Grable from World War II.
Oh my, we're gonna have a dinner.
There's a submarine movie that shows when they went to battle stations, they're running through here to get to their battle stations. For good luck, they would pat this picture. And this is all the space you had to eat, so you had to eat in shifts. You can't get 70 men in here all at one time.
If you're lucky, you get 24.
Yeah. And this is also where they would, if they had some time off, they would play games like a card game, or they liked a game called AC Doocy, and they did dominoes. And this is also where they would show movies in here, and they would also show them in the forward torpedo room. But when I was working here as a mess cook, I wasn't qualified yet, so you're not allowed to watch movies when you're what they call non-qualified puke, and the screen would be up here. And I'd be passing out sandwiches to the guys that were qualified, and they were off watch. They were watching. If I happened to turn and look like that, invariably, don't be looking at that movie until you're qualified. Give you a hard time. Because it was really important to be qualified, because until you were qualified, you could be a danger to the own crew, because if you didn't know what to do in an emergency.
Say something to do, you do it. You gotta know where to go and where to do.
Yeah. Man, I
Spent
spent a lot of hours in here. It's amazing how small this is. Yeah.
Where does that phone call to? Or is that a phone?
Anywhere you want.
Oh.
Any part of the ship, you just ring it up and.
Oh.
And then you just hit
This is that main induction valve that they're talking about, the biggest opening to the sea, 36 inches. And a lot of water can come in, and it's 36-inch diameter, so you got to make sure that puppy's closed before you go down. And you need a big air induction valve like that for these diesel engines, so you're going to see in a few minutes as we proceed aft. They sucked air like crazy. But one of the things that was nice about them, when you were submerged for a long time, the air got pretty stale inside. And sometimes it got so bad they had to spread out carbon dioxide absorbent. But when they finally surface, they light off those diesels, and you could have the conning tower hatch open. Sometimes they'd even open maybe the forward or after torpedo room hatch, and those diesels would just suck air through here, and it'd be like about 40-mile-an-hour wind, just but it was fresh air full of oxygen, and it just felt wonderful to get it. Blow the sweat off you too. Yeah. There's some pictures on the wall there of crews of the submarine. You can see how the size of the crews. There wasn't, like I said, there's generally around 70 men total, give or take. A few. And this is the hatch that I showed you when we were up on the deck. that comes down
Oh, okay.
through the forward battery compartment. This is where you'd load all your stores through here, bring them down in boxes and store them in there. And actually, when they went to sea, they stored food any place they could find a spot. Canned goods and everything, they'd be all over the place. Any nook or cranny they could put them in, because there's just not much storage space, and food is the main thing that limits how long you can be at sea. I mean, fuel too, but these size boats, they could put enough fuel on them, they could steam for 12,000 miles. So about halfway around the world if they had to.
I was on one of the boats that did the Cuban blockade, 90-day supplies. We had cans of food on the deck, all the decks, all the way through.
Yeah, can you imagine? Instead of the floor like this, you gotta step on. There's these big, what they call them, what are they, number 10 cans? They're about this. And they just make another layer of floor.
I think there's some back here, aren't there, number 10?
Yeah.
That's it right
Yeah.
there. That's it.
Yeah, right there.
They just lined the floors with them because they didn't have any place else to put them.
Put this in there, so the corners in there.
But we did have good food, generally speaking. But the longer you were out on patrol, the quicker the good stuff was used up, and you might be eating beans and rice.
Skipper, you didn't get in the port to get fresh stuff.
Yeah. And usually when they came back from patrol, they go up topside and you pull up alongside the tender. The first thing they do is bring down some fresh fruit, fresh milk, and fresh vegetables. The guys would just dig in.
Grab them, yeah.
Okay, we're going into the crew's berthing area.
It's amazing. Every time I go through
This is the after battery.
It's like an apartment, you got everything here. You got your kitchen, you got your dining room, you got your living room, you got your berthing space, you got your showers. You'll see those
We
later.
weren't impressed with the showers in the toilet. It's not 5-star.
I'll go a little further. Those showers on long patrols, only 3 people can use them.
That's what he said.
That was one advantage being a mess cook.
2 cooks, 2 mess cooks, and the foreman. That's it.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy.
Now, this is called the after batteries, so like the forward battery, underneath this floor, there's 126 of those big lead acid batteries that run this thing when it's submerged. And you can see the bunks in here. There's a little more space, but
Thanks, Ray.
it's still pretty tight sleeping quarters. And what's interesting, if you're the crews that are off duty are sleeping in here, and all of a sudden you have an emergency or manned battle stations, everybody's flying out of their rack at one time and they running through this boat to get to their battle station, wherever that is. It's amazing how you learn to run through this thing and go through the hatches fast both directions. Okay, here's the shower and sink cleaning area for about 60 of the crew of 70, this small area. But again, you couldn't use a lot of water in here, just small amount to brush your teeth, maybe wash your face now and then, unless you were a cook or mess cook, and then you could take a shower. And then here are 2 more heads, like you saw up forward with all those valves. This is where you go, bathroom. Now, in here, we're going to step in the next compartment. It's the forward engine room. This is where Mike Burkholder, who's been up the lake, this is where he worked. And he was, when we were running on the surface, he'd normally be sitting right here, watching anybody that came back here and make sure they weren't using more water than they should. Wait a minute. I'll do this.
Still get through the hatch, Mac, huh? Not as easy.
No, that's for darn sure.
Oh, Chuck, just taking back the after engine.
What do you guys think?
Taking back the after engine, same thing.
It is cool.
Yeah.
Two engine.
Okay.
Back there, just telling the same thing.
Yeah. We're gonna, this is the forward engine room. We're gonna proceed to the after engine room. It's pretty much the same equipment that's in it. But this is the propulsion system that runs the boat on the surface, and it charges the generators that charge the batteries so we can run.
That's cramping from getting it torpedo. They might let you in there, you never know.
This is Bob McKinnon. He's one of my best buddies from back in those days. He was a torpedoman too.
Just taking back in there. And the only,
Okay.
The only difference here is we got the two stills, and there's a hatch in back.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
Same.
Are these Fairbanks Morris
Nope,
diesels?
these GMs.
Oh, okay.
Detroit 16.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Walked right through.
Excuse me.
We're
Come.
proposing diesels. Okay. The sole purpose of these engines is the term what I'm sitting on, is generator. These are diesel electric cylinders. The propellers are driven actually by electric motors. Okay. On this particular boat,
Okay, this is the after engine room, and it also has two diesel engines. These happen to be General Motors diesel engines. The ones on the boat I was on were Fairbank Morris, but they pretty much operate the same way. Fairbank Morris diesels turned out to be more reliable, but if you can look right down through here, you get an idea how big the cylinder head. They took the cylinder head out of here. It goes to the crankshaft. There's a piston. And when these babies were humming, they were throwing off a lot of heat and making a lot of noise. And you know when we start our cars, we push a button, we got a key, and we push a button and it starts electrically. Well, these start with air. They shoot high pressure air into those cylinders to get them moving. And the compression of the fuel that goes in there heats it up and has it fire. So it doesn't have spark plugs like your cars do. The engine men that kept these things running and worked in these compartments had, I'd say, one of the toughest jobs on board because it was hot, it was dirty, it was all kinds of vibrations, and there's just so many mechanical things going on that they got to know what to do with and monitor it, and if something goes wrong, get it fixed in a hurry or as quick as they can. But it wasn't unusual on a patrol for have a major problem with one of these diesels, and they would tear it down almost to all the parts and fix the problem, put it back together. I mean, when you're out on your own, you had to do it. But the good thing is that there's 4 of these, and the ship could run on one, but when we get in the maneuvering room back here, we'll talk about how they line these things up to either charge the batteries or direct drive to the generators to run the screws. And when all 4 of them are shoving power to the screws, these boats, you can crank them up to about 21 knots on the surface. But now when they're running on batteries, below the surface, they're a lot slower. About the most you can get on them is maybe 8 knots, and if you run at 8 knots for very long, you drain the batteries in a matter of a couple hours. Generally, they would cruise along slowly at around 4 knots.
Got the big intake valve you're talking about?
Let me think, yeah. That is the intake valve for this, isn't it?
Air.
Yeah.
Same thing here.
These engines gulp up a lot of air burning that fuel. This has a lower level, and it's pretty much filled with the bottom half of these diesels and a few other things, pumps, lube oil, and all the accessories needed to run these engines. And sometimes we had a backup little small engine if you had everything down that you could at least move the boat around. But it's, I don't know, from my perspective, these things are kind of an engineering miracle, the way they put all this stuff together in these confined spaces, and men learned how to operate it all and keep these things running. And what they did for our country during World War II, with these kind of boats, they sank 30% of the Japanese Navy and over 50% of their merchant marine, and that pretty much put them out of business for declaring war on people.
Oh, that's a small area.
Up in there.
Yeah.
Grandpa gets. No, this
Come on back here.
I recommend, Chuck, that you move them all in the dirt, just have them curl
Okay.
down,
Keep coming.
because they're all the way up to there, because you don't have any
Yeah.
space here.
Here's another one of those potties. Remember, with all the valves on?
There you go. Opens up a little.
Place where you sit down.
General Electric.
Some of you need to go over there on that little stanchion over there.
Can you, Robert? Can you stand right up on that?
Yeah, you need to stand.
There you go.
I'll stay right
Okay.
next to him.
Okay, this is the heart of the electrical controls. Now, those big diesels didn't have direct drive to the screws. They ran generators that ran motors. So the screws, whether or not you're running on the surface or submerged, are actually being turned by electric motors. And they get a signal from the bridge. If we're on the surface, what the officer on the deck wants for speed, it comes back here and they recognize it and they flip these levers to do what they need to do to get that speed. And they can go from having all four of those diesels making electricity that goes directly to the motors. That's when you can get to 21 knots. But they may have three of them for propulsion, and one of them they'll put on charging the battery. If you do that, you might be able to get 15, 16 knots out. And a lot of times they'd have two on propulsion and two on batteries. It was always a delicate balancing act. They always tried to keep their batteries charged because it was so important to have juice in those batteries if you had to dive, because if you didn't, you were helpless. You'd have to come right back up, and if there were destroyers up there or airplanes looking for you, they could make short work of you. So what these guys did was very important back here. These are the same guys that have to crawl down in there with the batteries too and take care of them. So they had a demanding job. Everybody on board a sub has pretty much of a demanding job. But they're all experts in their own way, but everybody else in the crew knows an awful lot about what they have to do and can step in when it's necessary. You got all these electrical gauges they gotta keep monitoring. Then we got RPMs they're turning. So it's an exciting place. Now back are they empty in the next one?
It's clear.
Okay. This is the aftertow operator room, and I spent a little over a month back there. And it's kind of unique.
Let's get here.
Oh, geez. Larry, I've been walking through explaining this stuff. I got my pointer in the pocket. I didn't even pull it out.
Never did.
I'll pull it out now. Yeah.
And when
Okay.
you point at something, like if you want to spot, let's say that tube,
Yeah.
wiggle it.
Yeah.
That way they can see it.
Okay. All right, this is the after torpedo room.
Back here. Go back here. Here you go. Back here. Try your shoe. Before you brush your head.
When we go back up, can we try to go in the bunk?
Try to go where?
In the bunk.
Oh, in a bunk? Well, okay, the after torpedo room, now it's part of the offensive power of the boat. It's got, but it only has 4 torpedo tubes back here. And you can see the one right here, the inner door is open, and you look down in there. That thing is about 21 feet long and about 21 inches in diameter. So for you engineers, what's that make the circumference? Yeah. 2 pi d, right?
No, it's just pi d.
Oh, pi d?
Yeah, 2 pi r pi d. So
Well,
21 to 360 something.
many a time, Grandpa, see that little sled there? I got to crawl in there and take some rags and some steel wool back in there and clean out the inside of that tube. And when I was in there, they would shut this door, so it'd be like that. Because that's part of the watertight integrity, and they don't like to leave those open any longer than they have to. This is also one of the major bunk areas, and this was my bunk when I was back here.
This right here?
And I was a lot smaller then, right?
Oh my goodness.
But
Oh my.
the interesting thing about this room, when you're steaming on the surface, the 2 shafts for the propellers go out through the back of this hull, and the hydraulic ram for the rudder is back there. And these submarines are round like a barrel. And when you're back here, you got a 6-hour watch back here. It's loud. We're running on the surface. I'm getting the noise from the engine room and the heat from the engine room. And here's what it's doing. Well, I follow this red light. This is the motion that it's doing. Like a figure 8, up and around, 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 up and around, around, around. Whoops, sorry. And the only thing you got back here is you can go in the head and get a drink of water. But, well, they would store it. Sometimes they would hide food back here. But the water that comes through the engine room, when the engines are running, it's all hot, or at least lukewarm. You don't have any cold water. This also has a hatch here that goes up to the deck. We showed you when you were up on the deck.
How did you get in your bunk?
Well,
There doesn't look like there's any room to get in there.
We need a quick demonstration. Maybe not.
I think bigger than redhead on that.
Like,
it wasn't easy. You would have to swing in and get your legs going down there, then you just scooch down until you're in there. And getting out was hard to do fast. Now, you see, they got these bunks up out of the way. If there's torpedoes here, they clear them, but they can lower these things down once the torpedoes are on the way to be used.
I bet how this guy would feel when he's sleeping.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my.
And
Torpedo above your head.
these torpedoes are big weapons. I mean, they're weigh around 3,000 pounds, and 21 feet long. And they're heavy, and you have to be really careful moving these things around. These racks can slide back and forth, but you got to make sure they're locked into place, because they're moving these things around while they're at sea. And there is cases in World War II where they were trying to reload torpedo tubes when they were damn near fighting a hurricane type sea. And unfortunately, there were a few times where one of these torpedoes would get loose, and if they fall on somebody, it's not a very good deal.
What are the torpedoes made out of?
Well, the outside is steel.
I mean, like,
Inside, there's a lot of things. More steel, electrical wire, tanks for fuel, and warhead.
Cut away. As soon as you walk in the building, it's one cut away on the way.
Okay.
You take a look. They
And
got
question-
one like cut open so you can see what it looks like
Yeah.
inside.
wait, so is it kind of like explosive, or
Yes.
or does it just go bang?
No, that is explosive.
It's a big explosive.
It's like a big bomb, but it goes underwater instead of getting dropped through the air.
And it's more effective than a bomb because, again, water, your dads will tell you, water is not compressible. So when a torpedo explodes, it forces the water right through the hull of the ship. That is, if you see some of those submarine movies, when a torpedo hits a ship, it shoots a stream of water a couple 100 feet in the air while it's caving in the side of the ship.
Okay. Wait, there's an
Okay.
open one. There's an open torpedo.
What's
yeah,
that?
in the museum apparently.
Oh.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll see that. Well, we'll see it on the way out.
When you go to the courthouse part, because it's about a half an hour. When you get to there, it's all the way through, but to the back and to the right. That's where she goes.
Okay.
All the way through, back to the right.
Okay.
Just tell her you're with the U.S.
Yeah, we're going to head out for there right now. Yeah. We're going to walk down.
Yeah, that's right. I'm waiting for these guys.
Go ahead.
Are you going? Oh, the door's closed. Oh, the doors are closed.
I got it. Hold on.
No.
Hold on, guys.